Good evening. We'd like to welcome all listening, viewing this meeting of the Kansas City Board of Public Utilities, whether in person or through technology. This meeting is being recorded by both video and audio. Please note the following changes to the board meeting structure as stated in the board rules of procedure. The regular session meeting of the elected board shall be on the first Wednesday of each month of the year, or as otherwise properly noticed at the hour, 6 p.m., in this boardroom of the Board of Public Utilities located here at 540 Minnesota Avenue. The third Wednesday of each month shall be reserved for the elected board to conduct work session meetings, elected board committee meetings, executive session meetings, an additional regular session meeting or any other such meeting that's required to conduct the business of this utility. During the public comments section of the agenda, community members who wish to speak to the board will be asked to provide their name and will then have 5 minutes to speak. There will be one opportunity for public comments following the substantive agenda items. During the public comments section, members of the public using Zoom that wish to address the board need to use the raised hand feature that's at the bottom of the application or a window to signal that they wish to address the board. Members of the public connected by phone only need to press the *9 to indicate they wish to address the board in the public comment section. Now, those attending here in person should sign in up on the sheet located near the entry with Ms. May. And if you wish to speak with customer care regarding your account, please indicate that on the sign-in sheet. Comments are limited, as we said, to 5 minutes, should be directed to the board. As these comments are public, the board cautions visitors to not disclose confidential account information or information on an account that is not in their name. Staff will not provide individual account information history in an open meeting. As always, the public may also email or call the BPU with any concerns. The agenda and presentations may be found on the BPU website, or if you're using Zoom, they will appear on your screen. As a reminder, this is a business meeting of the Board of Directors, and we will conduct the meeting accordingly. The following rules apply to this meeting. Every person in this room will act respectfully towards each other. Personal attacks and accusations toward any person will not be tolerated. State your specific issue to the board only, and we will then determine the team's involvement or staff's involvement, and attendees shall refrain from side discussion or individual commentary that interferes with speakers or other attendees at this meeting. If side discussion is necessary, please take it outside of the boardroom. If any of the rules above are breached during the meeting, that individual is subject to removal from this boardroom. So my name is David Haley. I'm member at large, position number 2, and board president. Other members of our board and of our staff include our general manager, Jeremy Ash, Mr. Tom Groneman, 2nd District, Mr. Stevie Wake Sr. with the 1st District, Mr. Brett Parker, who's the 3rd District and who is our board secretary, Ms. Mary Gonzalez, who's member at large in position 1, and Ms. Rose Mulvaney Henry, member at large for position number 3, who is also the board vice president. Angela Lawson is back with us. This is our acting chief counsel. Please remember to put the phones on silent, cell phones on silent. Please also be aware that the microphones are very sensitive and can pick up and record comments made anywhere in the room. So before we begin our meeting, please rise and join me in reciting our Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Just as a reminder for our mission here at the BPU is to focus on the needs of our customers to improve the quality of life in our community while promoting safe, reliable, and sustainable utilities. Ms. Lawson, call the roll, please.
Roll call. Mulvaney Henry,
Here.
Parker,
Here.
Gonzalez,
Here.
Groneman,
Here.
Haley,
Present.
Wakes.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. So before I ask for a motion to approve the regular session agenda for today, for June 4th, 2025, are there any comments on the agenda?
Mrs. Rose, so moved. Second.
Thank you. Ms. Lawson, roll call, please.
Roll call. Mulvaney Henry,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Gonzalez,
Aye.
Groneman,
Aye.
Haley,
Aye.
Wakes.
Aye.
That motion carries.
Thank you. And before I ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda for tonight of June 4th, 2025, are there any comments? Seeing none?
Mrs. Rose, so moved.
Second.
All right, thank you. Ms. Lawson, if you call the roll, please.
Roll call. Mulvaney Henry,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Gonzalez,
Aye.
Groneman,
Aye.
Haley,
Aye.
Wakes.
Aye.
That motion carries.
Very well, thank you. Now at this point in time, I'm going to turn the meeting over to our General Manager, Jeremy Ash. Mr. Ash, good evening.
Thank you, President Haley. I see that we have Mr. Otting in the front row, so I'm, don't know if Randy's going to come up and introduce anybody or if Andrew's going to do it, but first item we have is the presentation of the audit. So I see Mr. Holman here as well. So Andrew, if you would.
Good evening, and again, thanks for having us. It's that time of year again. I really just wanted to spend a few minutes discussing the annual financial audit process. I did bring a couple staff members, Randy Otting, Christy Tanner, and so we are here if you have any questions for staff. But Matt and Jacob are here as well, and they're here with Forvis, and they'll be presenting their audited findings after I get done here. So really, as you're likely aware, the financial audit process is really a thorough examination of a company's financial records to verify the accuracy and adherence to generally accepted accounting principles based on generally accepted accounting standards. And so members of my team, like Randy and Christy, they've done a lot of the heavy lifting on this project, but it's really an organization-wide project. And so we work with individuals throughout the organization to provide all the reporting necessary to finalize a task such as this. And so really, as part of this process, the BPU has contracted with Forvis Mazars to perform this responsibility. And so as part of that audit process, Forvis Mazars, their responsibility is really forming an opinion and expressing that opinion about whether the financial statements that have been prepared by management have been prepared in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, right? So additionally, their role is to examine inconsistencies and material misstatements and those type of things. And so I'm really going to let Forvis really detail the results of that audit. But I did want to say that I was really pleased with staff and the process and the findings, and in many ways, really look forward to next year because I think staff and myself especially have grown a lot through this process. And I look forward to some of the changes that we can implement internally to take advantage of some of that newfound knowledge that we have. And so anyway, with that, I will turn it over to Jacob with Forvis and Mazars, and he'll share the details of the audit. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to present tonight. My name is Jacob Holman, a partner with Forvis Mazars, and I have Matt McCall with me as well, a director on the account with Forvis, and excited to go over the audit results of the 2024 financial statement audit of the Board of Public Utilities. So tonight, I'm going to go over a scorecard and talk about a status of where we are in the audit. When I say a scorecard, really the high level 10,000-foot view, what are the most important things if I was in your shoe that I would want to know as a board of directors? And then I'll let Matt go through some of the required communications that's up there on the screen that are required to be communicated as part of the financial statement audit. So from a status update, we are in draft form. We're substantially complete with our audit procedures. The main things that are open are really subsequent events. that will go through all the way through the date of our issuance, looking at subsequent board minutes and making sure that there was no additional items that need to be disclosed that happened in 2025. And then the second thing that the reason the audit is not finalized is there is an ERC rate rider has to be approved by the board before we can finalize the audit for that over or under recovery. So from a status update, we're very close as soon as we get those two things wrapped up here in the next week. From the scorecard, the first thing I really want to talk about is just that management was well prepared, very organized. The information came to us timely, and it was a very good audit experience from our end. So truly appreciate all the help with management. And like Andrew said, most of our time is spent with accounting, but we spend a lot of time with the organizations and the departments outside of accounting as well. So truly appreciate all of management throughout the organization as part of the audit process. Second thing I wanted to point out is just that we are planning on issuing a clean opinion, a clean, unmodified opinion. So what that means is high level, we believe your financial statements are materially accurate, as well as all the required footnote disclosures that should be included are included. So that's the opinion that you want as a board. From an audit adjustment, our audit did not uncover any audit adjustments that were recorded tonight that we'd have to discuss. So I think that that's good to point out. There was one new accounting standard that Matt will talk a little bit about. So there's one new accounting standard. If you look at the prior year financials, the accounting for your compensated absences is going to be a little bit different because of that new accounting standard that all organizations had to adopt for fiscal year end 2024. And with that, I'm going to pass it off to Matt.
All right, thank you. Well, as Jacob said, I want to cover some of these required communications that we have in this letter. This is our letter to those that are charged with governance. And as your auditor, it's the information that we are required to ensure to communicate to you all here today. The first thing I'll talk about, and Andrew alluded to this as well, is what is our responsibility as your auditors? And our responsibility is to issue an opinion about whether your financial statements are fairly stated in all material respects. And what that really means is a reader going to be misled by anything in those financial statements? And if not, then we are prepared to issue a clean opinion, which, as Jacob said, we are prepared to issue a clean opinion on your audit this year. And we did perform our audit under all of the accounting standards that you would expect us to. So the generally accepted auditing standards, government auditing standards, and those standards under the Kansas Municipal Audit Guide. As Jacob said, we did adopt a new accounting standard this year. It's GASB 101 for compensated absences. It was adopted by all government organizations, and we worked closely with management to ensure that the adoption of that standard was implemented correctly into your financial statements. And it's really more of I'll call it an accounting function or an accounting adjustment. There aren't any changes to the actual compensated absences or sick pay policies or vacation policies within your organization. This is really more of an accounting treatment change with what is accrued on your financial statements as it relates to sick pay and vacation pay. So we work closely with management on that and are comfortable with how it's reported in your financial statements. We did not have any recorded adjustments during the course of the audit. However, we did identify some immaterial journal entries that we proposed to management. Management elected not to record those as they weren't considered material. We agreed with management's assessment that they weren't material and agree that it makes sense to exclude those from the financial statements. So no issues with regard to those past adjustments. And then the last thing I'll point out, again, as Jacob said, we didn't have any disagreements with management. We didn't have any difficulties in performing the audit. Management was very forthcoming with all the information that we requested and was able to answer all of our questions sufficiently. So really appreciated all of their hard work throughout the audit process. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions that you might have for Jacob or I.
Right. Mr. Parker.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify, I think you said this, but you were highlighting that new standard just because it is a new one, not because it was out of compliance or anything.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so anytime there's a new standard, we have to basically do what we call a formal consultation. So we have to do a lot more work. Our national office has to buy off if the accounting is appropriate. So all organizations that follow GASB had to adopt this standard. So it's nothing specific to BPU, but we did want to let you know, like if you look year over year, compensated absence will have a slightly higher liability in 24 versus 23. It's not because you guys changed the policy. You're not offering more or less compensated absences. It's really financial reporting changed.
I appreciate that. That's helpful. Thank you.
Any other questions? I'm sorry, Chair.
Well, seeing no other questions, thank you very much. And I think, for sure, we'll probably see some more of Matt, but you should be used to hearing from Jacob. So thank you for the work. And Andrew, I think, is there another piece?
Thank you. I appreciate that. But yes, so we do have two resolutions this evening. As they mentioned, one is regarding the ERC over recovery piece, and then the other is the adoption of the audited financials. And so resolution number 5313, a resolution approving the over recovery of the energy rate component for the third and fourth quarter of 2024 in the amount of $9,658,617, which will be recognized over the first and second quarters of 2025. Whereas the Kansas City Board of Public Utilities and Administrative Agency of the Unified Government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas, KCBPU adopted the energy rate component rate rider in a rate hearing which provides for a reconciliation adjustment for over and under recoveries. And whereas the KCBPU had an over recovery in the third and fourth quarters of 2024 in the amount of $9,658,617 and wishes to amortize it over the first and second quarter of 2025. Now therefore be it resolved and ordained by the governing body of the KCBPU, the over recovery of the energy rate component for the third and fourth quarters of 2024 shall be recognized in the amount of $9,658,617 and shall be amortized over the first and second quarter of 2025. You have that resolution in your book, Mr. Haley.
I move to accept resolution 5313.
I have a question.
I was about to say, we'll see if there's a second, and then we'll have discussion.
Second.
A second, Mr. Barker. Any questions on the resolution?
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Wakes.
Would you please explain the recognize and amortization?
Yeah, so the way the energy rate component first works is that we forecast what we believe the fuel and purchase power or energy cost will be for the following quarter. And obviously, we will not know exactly what the prices are, what natural gas prices are, all of these things that go into that function. And so each quarter, we're going to be right a little bit high or a little bit low. And so for the third and fourth quarter, we estimated a little bit high, right? So that means what we need to do now is this $9.65 million, essentially over the first two quarters of 2025, we will be returning those funds back through the rates, back to the ratepayers when you
That's what I
are
wanted to,
over
that's what I
recovered.
wanted you to explain. So I wanted to be publicly heard so that everybody understand that this is going to be a benefit to ratepayers, that they're going to receive this back into the components on their bills. And I wanted them to hear that. And I appreciate you clarifying that. Thank you.
Yeah,
And if I could, Andrew, would you talk about, you talk about rates and you talk about ERC, talk about how it's going to be returned?
so through the energy rate component, again, it's a forecast, right? So we're forecasting what we believe. So the first quarter is, right? So we don't know exactly what that number will be. But what we do is we forecast what we believe that number to be, and then we put that deduction within that forecast. And so therefore, at the end, we have the value of what we believe that value to be after we return those funds. And so after the first quarter is done, then we will reassess where we're at. Are we still at an over recovery or are we at now an under recovery, right? So that just bounces back and forth. But every quarter, we essentially forecast exactly what we believe those numbers to be. And then we add that either deduction or additional expense based off the previous quarters. So.
Thank you, Andrew.
So I have a follow-up to that. So this says the first and second quarters of this year that it's been done. So I'm trying to understand procedurally where we are since we've already completed the first and second quarters.
So we are into the second quarter today. Right? So January, February, March, April, May, June. So we are into I'll say last month of the second
Right.
quarter, right? So we are already doing it regardless, right? This is what we do every single month. But they're looking at the end of year 2024, right? So from an accounting standard, these are funds that we collected in 2024, right? That we are now giving back in 2025. So effectively the way we allocate it from an accounting standard is these are 2024 funds we're effectively giving it back. So this is the process is that in the first quarter, I collect funds and I'm either over or under collected. So let's say I'm over collected. I give those funds back during the third quarter because I reconcile that during the second quarter and I will return those funds during the third quarter. And so anything that happens in the second quarter, I will return in the fourth quarter.
Okay.
And so the same process happens in third, fourth quarter, but because we do the audit on end of year, that's why end of year stuff comes up and, the first two quarters, you're not going to see this for third and fourth quarter because they don't care about that because they're already cleared through the system, right? So it's really an accounting function more than anything, but it's a recognition of when those funds are accounted for. But yeah, so the process is anything that happens in the first quarter is returned in the third. Anything happens in the second is returned in the fourth, that type process.
So if I understand correctly, if there is some sort of, to follow up to Mr. Wakes's question. So in the third quarter would be if there is a reduction that is applied, that the ratepayer may actually begin to recognize that beginning next
January
month?
1, right? So if we had an over collection in the third quarter, we will begin returning those funds January 1 of the following year. So we've been returning these funds that we're talking about here since January 1 of 2025. And so you've seen it on your bill in January and February and March and so forth. So the third quarter will be returned in the first quarter, so starting January 1, and the fourth quarter over collection will be returned in the second quarter, so starting April 1.
All right, thank
Hopefully it
you.
remains an over collection.
Hopefully good things with purchase power and production and all those things help us stay on the right side of that ledger. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Any further discussion regarding this? Okay, we have a motion second. If you will, Ms. Lawson, roll call, please, on the motion, on the resolution.
Roll call, Mulvaney Henry,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Gonzalez,
Aye.
Groneman,
Aye.
Haley.
Aye.
Wakes.
Aye.
That motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Thank you, Mr. Ferris.
You're welcome. And I do have one more resolution. It is resolution number 5314. I do have one note to make that on the first line in your books, the word financial is missing an F, I believe. Mr. Haley should have a corrected copy with the F in place on the word financial. And so I'll read that now. So resolution authorizing the adoption of the 2024 audited financial statements and schedules. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Public Utilities and Administrative Agency of the Unified Government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas, whereas the 2024 audited financial statements and schedules has been presented to the elected board of the Kansas City Board of Public Utilities and Administrative Agency of the Unified Government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas, and whereas the elected board has reviewed said statements and schedules as audited by Forvis Mazars LLP, and whereas the elected board wishes to adopt the 2024 audited financial statements and schedules. Therefore, the elected board hereby adopts the 2024 audited financial statements and schedules.
I move to adopt the 2024 audited financial statements.
Wait, second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on the resolution, on the motion? Seeing none? Roll call, please.
Roll call, Mulvaney Henry,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Gonzalez,
Aye.
Groneman,
Aye.
Haley.
Aye.
Wakes.
Aye.
That motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board, and thank you, Andrew. Next up, we have Kimberly Swati from Jenker Swati Public Affairs. I think most of you know her and have seen her before, so she's here tonight to give us an update on all of the hard work that Mr. Haley and others have uptaken in Topeka and in the country probably a little bit too.
In the country, yes. Well, good evening, members of the board. I always appreciate the opportunity to be before you. And we will do a little bit of a legislative update. Usually this feels like the session has just ended, but the calendar changed this year, as Senator Haley knows a little something about. So we've actually been out of session for a couple weeks longer than usual. I'm still trying to decide what I think about the new schedule. In some respects, it was good. In some respects, I think it made the calendar too compact. And so there were probably quite a few things that we needed to address that we didn't get the chance to address. But I don't set the calendar, so I just respond to it. So anyway, but we, to that end, there was a significant change to the legislative calendar this session. And also, certainly, I think we're still trying to confirm whether or not this was the first time in the state's history or kind of in a modern history in the last 50 years that the state has changed its budgeting process. So those two factors really combine to make for a very different feel for the legislative session. And so those two changes, and particularly the change to the budget process, really drove the flow of the legislative session. But what was kind of interesting is that local government really kind of drew the ire of policymakers this legislative session. And most of the focus was not necessarily on governance itself and local government, but it was really on ways to provide tax relief and other sort of relief. Well, no, just tax relief, and whether it's a property tax or income tax to Kansans. But in doing so, there was a rash of ideas put forward by policymakers that would actually have a really dramatic impact on how local governments function and how they report and how they go about financing their day in and day out operations. So we spent a considerable amount of time not only working on our electric and water and wastewater and to a lesser extent telecom issues, but also getting really involved in the conversations about local government and how fundamental infrastructure is provided and paid for and serviced, and questions about how we bond or don't bond. So it was a different session from that standpoint. And so we were very pleased to get to be part of that conversation. So we had 707 bills introduced this legislative session. There were 48 House and Senate concurrent resolutions that were introduced, 9 different constitutional amendments that were introduced, and they were designed to be staggered across the next series of elections in both the primary and the general. There were KMU and the municipal utility community. We were involved in between 70 and 80 direct pieces of legislation, and we day in and day out attend at least 14 different committees of jurisdiction. So I'm just going to go through some of the top line issues that I think would be of greatest. There's a lot, so we could spend a lot of time, but just the top line issues that I think that if you were talking with your constituents and folks in your community, what would you want to make sure that they knew happened? And one of the issues is that as you drive around the community, you see additional rooftop solar. So solar panels that are going on to individuals' homes. And we have a handful of very strong residential solar providers that work in the state of Kansas. But there are a lot of companies that are out-of-state companies, or they are simply financing arms of larger entities, one of which, the largest in the nation, just yesterday declared bankruptcy. And they go around and there's a lot of kind of predatory lending. There's a lot of not providing accurate or factual information about not so much how much the system will cost, but how quickly it will pay itself back. They don't always work closely with the utility, whether it's, Kansas City Board of Public Utilities or Evergy or any other utility in the state of Kansas. And so we have been wanting to craft either, well, one, a whole series of consumer protections, but then two, a registry to make sure that we know, the state knows who's doing business in this capacity in the state of Kansas. We expect the same of virtually every other type of business. And so it made sense for that to be sought this session. So that concept of consumer protection for distributed generation or rooftop solar was paired with the solar companies themselves wanted to see changes made to what's called parallel generation. And last year at this time, I was before you talking about some changes that were made to net metering, specifically to Evergy. Kansas City Board of Public Utilities has a net metering policy. It's a voluntary policy. The state does not mandate that we have a net metering policy, but BPU 16 years ago voluntarily crafted that net metering policy, and it looks and feels very similar to Evergy's. But there was a push this legislative session. What we are required to offer is what's called parallel generation, which actually it is different, and I don't want to spend a ton of time going through all of the difference, but it's essentially how the electrons are accounted for. And we are required by state and federal law to offer parallel generation. And so some additional changes were wanting to be made to the parallel generation statutes to facilitate the greater development of rooftop solar. And so we wanted to make sure that if we were going to facilitate greater development of rooftop solar, that we were also instituting the consumer protections. There is a full-time employee within the Attorney General's office whose sole function is to investigate the complaints related to rooftop solar and the issues that customers have. So that legislation we worked on, and we worked on it considerably this session, and in consultation with BPU and all of the other municipal utilities. And we did get that legislation enacted, passed virtually unanimously, and the governor signed it into law. And so right now I was appointed to a task force convened by the Attorney General's office to develop that distributed generation consumer protection worksheet. So for your constituents, if they are contemplating putting rooftop solar on their home, they will receive at least two documents. One will be the document that will detail kind of the financing aspects and all of the particulars about the system itself. And then the other document is the one that we are creating, and this is the disclosure document. And this is incredibly important. We actually included a provision in the bill that said you cannot sign the financial document on the day that the information is presented to you, that you need to at least wait a day to go through and create some additional verifications. There are provisions that the federal government allows as it relates to transferability and tax credits that can be associated with with rooftop solar. For example, the tax credits are transferable. They may be transferable to the homeowner, but the company, the third-party financing company, doesn't have to make them transferable to the homeowner. So we are putting forth in this disclosure document a box that talks about all of the different elements and financial mechanisms associated with that contract to ensure that a homeowner or small business owner knows, is this credit transferable? If so, yes. To whom? And on and on and on. So that will be sent to Jeremy and the whole team as soon as that's finalized, and that must be finalized per state statute by July 1. So we have another meeting yet on Friday. We continue to work through creating that very, I would say, well-vetted disclosure document. So I'm very pleased with that.
The consumer protection piece is something that I've been very vocal about in Topeka and at KMU, in fact, was today.
Yes.
on our meeting, because I do feel, and I think a number of our people, our field workers and different things, Gabi's team, the engineering team, Darren's folks that have to deal with this, there is a strong feeling that it is a little bit predatory in nature, and that that might be taking advantage of certain demographics of our community. And so KMU, Kimberly, we have, as much as we can, put that to the forefront of our argument to try to protect our communities.
And again, there are strong, reputable Kansas rooftop solar companies that do a good job, but there are more entities that don't have a presence in the state, and they are third-party financing entities. So you do the financing with that company, another company does the installation, and then another company may do the servicing. So that doesn't give our customers a whole lot of recourse. And there are, in the case of one company in particular that has been allowed to do business in Kansas, more than 127 different homeowners who have since gone to sell their home only to find out that there was a second mortgage attached, a second lien attached to their home associated with their rooftop solar system. And I don't know how many of that is statewide, but that's the sort of thing we have to protect against. And so we cannot have individuals going to sell their home and assuming that they're going to be receiving X amount from funding and then finding out that in fact it's really a fraction of that because they've got to pay off the rooftop solar. So there is a lot that we pushed in that consumer protection language. I feel like ultimately we got a very good piece of legislation, good for rooftop solar, but also really good for those citizens that are looking at installing rooftop solar on their home. So that took a significant amount of time and was a very good piece of legislation in the end. We've talked a lot about water, and 3 legislative sessions ago, there was a historic amount of money infused into the state's water plan fund. The state for basically 15 years had been starving the water plan fund. We were some $90 million short in funding for different water projects. And even that in itself was woefully low by comparison to what we actually need to ensure stable, both a stable supply and quality and quantity of our drinking water across the state. So we were 90 million short just on the bare bones budget. So there has been an effort the last couple of years to really push an initiative forward to say what we do for the transportation plan, which is every 10 years we come up with a new comprehensive transportation plan that studies everything that's needed across the state, from bridge repairs to county roads to interstate highway, or not so much interstate highways, but how do you partner with the federal government on the interstate highways to the state highways. We need to do that for water, because there are a lot of communities in the western portion of the state that are looking at significant declines in our water quantity. We also have significant quality concerns. And then you have different issues on the eastern side of the state with sedimentation in the reservoirs, and that's extremely expensive to dredge. So this legislative session, there was a piece of legislation that we were also very involved in to create a new task force to study what is truly needed from a financial standpoint for the state to ensure the future water supply quality and quantity going forward, and develop a transportation-esque plan that we can then every 10 years or so go back and revisit and ensure that we're focusing on the right projects and we have the right dollar amount, so on and so forth. So that did pass. The governor did sign that into law. It's a 16-member task force, and there are there are 7 legislators that were automatically appointed to the committee or their designees, 3 ex officio members, and then that are like the Department of Health and Environment and the chief engineer, and then 6 non-legislative appointees. So KMU, we do have a position on that 15-member board, which was great. Josh, my business partner and husband, who was the state secretary of agriculture, worked for the EPA, And then also is just, a very, I can say this, he is an expert in Kansas water law. And so he was appointed to the task force as the representative from the utility standpoint, specifically municipal utilities. So that's been great. And the Nature Conservancy has a position there. There is an appointee from Evergy, which is interesting. They are, obviously one of the largest water right holders in the state because of the John Redmond Reservoir related to the nuclear facility plus Jeffrey Energy Center. And then, several other kind of different organizations. Well, only 3 other actually different organizations have a position on that board. But so that task force is going to start meeting very soon in the next couple of weeks, and they will spend the next 18 months working on, for the first tranche of 7 months, they'll put together a report on exactly what are the needs, and that will be presented to the legislature in January. And then going forward, next January, they'll present, well, how are we going to fund this and how are we going to finance it going forward? And hopefully we'll get legislative buy-in in that regard. 2 other things. We spent a lot of time talking about planning and how does local government plan for growth and economic development? How do we plan for infrastructure? And there were several pieces of legislation put forward this session that would have real impact on many cities' ability to plan. So this isn't as much of an issue on, like in Johnson County and Wyandotte County, where there is not 3 miles to grow. So there's a 3-mile radius around cities where they have the opportunity to, grow and plan out for infrastructure in the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. That doesn't so much happen here because the growth is obviously we're largely on top of one another, but out in other areas of the state, that 3-mile area is really significant. And so when you have like bedroom communities of Wichita or of Manhattan, that ability to plan and say, okay, the direction of our community is headed north, and in 5 years we'll be here, 10 years, 15, 20 years. So we've had a lot of conversation this session about how to handle that and to make sure that those residents that are living within that 3-mile radius that are technically in the county, they're not in the city, how do they have a voice in ensuring that, making sure that they do have a voice, which statutes are very clear on that in that planning process. So it is likely that we will have an interim committee to further discuss that issue this year. And I would be remiss if I didn't talk about, we could go through 50 pieces of legislation on the electric side, and I won't, but one of the key issues that is absolutely happening right here in the Kansas City metropolitan area is data centers. And so, and obviously the Kansas City Board of Public Utilities is right there. Evergy has certainly seen its fair share of data center growth and development. You have, the $2 billion worth of projects just across from the airport. I think Evergy's statistics are something to the extent of that it's taken them roughly 110 years to grow to their load level that they are right now, and they will double that in the next 5. And a lot of that has to do with data centers. It's staggering. Data centers plus other new economic development opportunities. So Kansas, and not just the Kansas City metropolitan area, but Kansas and the suburbs and the exurbs around Kansas City, Wichita, Garden City, Manhattan are really being looked at as areas for hyperscale data centers and then smaller scale data centers. This is a national security priority from the current administration, but then also, consumers are making it a priority because we like to make sure that we have access to all of our things all of the time. And so there was a piece of legislation that would allow for data center development to happen in the state of Kansas. It did create an incentive for data centers, a sales tax exemption. If the data center was approved by the Kansas Corporation Commission by the Kansas Department of Commerce, then there has to be a vetting in order to approve that project for a sales tax exemption. But the other attribute is that the Kansas Fusion Center, which is comprised of the Kansas Attorney General, the Kansas Adjutant General, and the head of the FBI, also have to sign off on a data center to ensure that having the data center and all of its equipment does not pose a national security risk. So that's an interesting development that no other state in the nation has as it relates to data center development. There's another provision in the bill that says you cannot offer an economic incentive rate to a data center. That applies to Evergy specifically. And there's a provision that does require power to be procured through the local utility for at least the first 10 years, because many of these data centers have the ability or would have the ability in the future to provide their own power. But one of the things that we have to make sure we're protecting the ratepayers on is if we're building out infrastructure and assets, that then we don't lose access to that customer after a period of time. So big piece of legislation. Kansas had some $15 billion worth of data center companies that are very interested in the state. So that pipeline is going to be very real for the coming future. And is one that I think that, as policymakers, we'll have to continue to grapple with. A lot of things related to law enforcement and public rights of way, wildfire legislation, which isn't so much of an issue here, but definitely is in more rural areas or smaller communities that are municipal utilities. And then legislation that if a utility was building a transmission line, that instead of just having 120 days, the Kansas Corporation Commission would have 180 days to file a line citing. So anyway, I will stop there and answer any questions. There's a lot to discuss, and I'm always happy to provide more information, but that's a general overview. It's very busy.
Some questions, if there are any?
Me too.
Could you explain parallel generation?
Yeah, okay, so this is a very kind
It's
of,
Jeremy, but I want to ask you.
yeah, a very, well, if you want to.
Darren's the expert.
So in net metering, essentially, you can, the meter is spinning backwards. So you are generating your own power, and then anything that you generate in excess can go back to the utility. And on the parallel generation standpoint, you just generate your own power largely. And you can send some back to the utility, but it's really designed. The thought behind it is just that you are generating for your own purpose.
Thank you.
That is a very basic, there's a lot more to it, but that's a basic explanation.
I'd like to thank you, Ms. Fadi. I'd like to thank you very much. Obviously, Kimberly, good to see you and your partner, Josh, all the time. Appreciate what you're doing. There's an interim committee, or would there be an interim utilities committee? And are any of those topics identified, and how might they impact us? I mean, looking down the road.
So this legislative session, I'm sorry, my apologies, this summer and fall, I don't believe that there will be an interim utilities committee, but we will be very involved in a couple of interim committees, I would say. We'll be very present if the interim committee on local government does in fact come to fruition. There's been discussion about there being one, and they may discuss this kind of 3-mile rule and extraterritorial zoning. So that really impacts our ability to plan for infrastructure. So we'll be very involved in that. We will be quite involved in the tax interim committee that Senator Karen Tyson has requested, and that's been approved for 4 days. So I think that will have a pretty significant, there were a lot of pieces of legislation, as you know, particularly at the end of session, that really impacted mill levy rates and budget timelines and the voting process. And honestly, it was kind of all over the place at the end, a lot of moving parts. And even some of the calendars on when a vote could occur versus when some of the mill levy rates were set, they didn't mesh. So it was pretty messy at the end. Unfortunately, most of that didn't pass because it wasn't actually workable. But those topics will come back, and that will absolutely have an impact on the UG and certainly on the UG's operations, and then would probably bleed down into the BPU. So we'll be very involved in that, an interim on commerce and an interim in Fed and State Affairs.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And finally, in the issue of data centers, that is probably the biggest matter. And I appreciate your sharing with us the sales tax exemption. And I didn't know there was a threshold investment per center, but with all the other matters that have been introduced or the other metrics that are necessary, there probably need not be a threshold investment for that sales tax and other exemptions to apply. We're looking for, this board will be considering probably very soon, probably this month, we may have a work session regarding data centers. I've personally been concerned as to how this probably larger than ever load that we will have, should they be implemented for the ones that are being considered. Expertise, not only in terms of those which uniquely come through Jen Kirsch-Fadi, your firm, but others, legal and what have you. We're siloed because of the UG in terms of what advice we can get, legal and otherwise. Are there resources or are there people that, as we, the board, look at what the data center and what data centers will mean to Wyandotte County, to this utility, that we might be able to access you, not only at Jen Kirsch-Fadi, but others? We're going to need some help, especially as it pertains to water quality or water quantity. As you know, they use a lot of water and that ability, but also in terms of what the rate is going to be and how those rates could benefit ultimately our ratepayers.
Kansas, so in answer to your question, the first question, yes, there is a minimum threshold for investment to qualify for the sales tax exemption, and it's $250 million.
Yeah.
The initial bill was a stair step of 250 million and then 500 million and then $1 billion. And it actually, the sales tax exemption went out 60 years, which that seems like a really long time. So I was really, frankly, personally glad to see that significantly pared back to a 20-year exemption, minimum $250 million investment. And then you still have to get the approval from Department of Commerce and from the Fusion Center. But then also Kansas has the benefit of many other states having gone first in the development of the data center economy. And so we can learn a lot. And I have been lucky enough to have watched that, been a part of it in some other states, to know these are absolutely things that we must require, that we must ask for, that we should expect anytime, whether it's a hyperscaler facility or a smaller facility. This is how you need to do business in Kansas.
Great. I'll certainly look forward to our visiting with you and your expertise in the other states. And we look at all kinds of things, the portfolio, renewable versus the other use to build up those many, many, many issues. And I'm grateful, as always, for your insight and your expertise, especially as we move into this uncharted territory for the BPU.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Kim. And best to Josh for me, please. Please give him my best. Any other matters or questions? Thank you.
All right. Seeing none, thank you, Kimberly. Always great to hear your update and the amount of interaction I get to have with her team through the KMU efforts. They are top notch. So we are getting absolutely the best of class service there. So thank you. Next up, we have team here from Electric Operations. And I think Mike Fergus is going to come up and introduce a couple of folks to talk about a project we recently participated in. Some of you that have been to the APPA events have probably seen or read or watched a presentation on the Light Up Navajo project. And as you all know, we've got sort of a renewed effort on community stewardship and giving back and just building relationships, not only with our community, but internally with our folks as well. So Mike's gonna, we recently participated in that event. Mike's gonna kick off a little bit of information about it. Amber's team has put together a video, and then it looks like we have Justin and David here, and you might have got stood up by the rest of your partners that went with you, but they're here to talk about their experience and answer any questions you might have about the experience herself or how it affected them. So go ahead, Mike. Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Jeremy. Good evening, board members. Yeah, the Light Up Navajo Initiative was started in 2019 by the Navajo Nation to connect families with electricity and internet services. In 2019, before the initiative started Light Up Navajo, there was roughly 15,000 residents without power. With approval of Jeremy and Darren McNew, I assembled a group of 4 linemen. David and Justin are 2 of them. Chris Collins and Trenton Overton wasn't here, and 1 superintendent, Derek Spears, to volunteer to help with restoration efforts. This effort is different than anything we do as linemen. When we usually go to some restoration effort, it is a damage, it's a storm or something. So the APPA has deemed this effort the storm without a storm. So it's kind of a special thing to go provide power to a resident or a customer that's never had it before. At this time, I'd like to show the video that Amber Otting and her team has presented.
And just while Rob cues that up, to add on to what Mike said there, these are 15,000 American citizens that have never in their entire existence had electricity or running water.
So why David keep getting the trucks to sleep in the mud?
Because he can't drive.
Driver ear. I'll let him have that. After we fought the sand for about 3 hours, the one spot he picked.
Trucks driving everywhere else. Just.
I can pick a loser. What do you want me to say?
In early May, a team of 5 linemen from the Kansas City Board of Public Utilities joined crews from across the nation in a mission unlike any other. Light Up Navajo is a partnership between the American Public Power Association and the Navajo Tribal Utility Authority, created to bring electricity to families in the Navajo Nation who have never had power. For the first time, our team traveled to the Navajo Nation near Monument Valley in Arizona to volunteer their skills, time, and passion, because public power means powering people wherever they are.
It's a grueling, about 18-hour drive almost. Yeah.
18 hours sounds long, but you know, you get in a truck with somebody that wants to talk about a wide variety of subjects. It seemed like it was 36 hours.
Our crew came home with more than memories. They have returned with a deep respect for Navajo culture, its multi-generational strength, and a quieter way of life that has left its mark.
The type of people that they were, and the sense of community they had, and how proud they were of their heritage. I mean, it just, you know, got a deeper respect for that.
Generations living in these homes. And so it wasn't just, it's not like what we think about where, you know, it's my wife and my kids. It's grandparents, kids, grandkids, you know, and so there are multiple generations living in these homes and on these properties.
Yeah, they said there'd be 5 generations sometimes in one little hogan, or you know what they called it.
Yeah,
I mean,
so.
yeah, I don't think there's any walls. There's no walls in there.
Yeah.
Door face to the east, and it's an octagon.
Yep.
Just for people to be in that environment and how harsh and, you know, it can be, and for them to just be as welcoming as they were and just brought us in. We're just like, here's food, you know. You sleep okay, you know, checking on us and just making sure that we were okay. And I mean, it was a great experience.
The landscape offered a kind of calm they weren't used to. There were no sirens and no noise, just open skies and stillness, very far from the pace of back home.
Yeah, it was a stark contrast from Wyandotte County. Just put it that way. Especially when you got out of town, there was no sirens, there was no nothing. Like Justin said, I think the best part of our day was lunch. Everybody was quiet and, you know, just being out in the middle of nowhere. Might see some wild horses or cattle or something going through there.
No, every time you look up, it's just like, oh, that's amazing. Then you look over there, that's amazing.
The crews from the Navajo Tribal Utility Authority welcomed VPU with humor, quick to remind them that they weren't there to sightsee, but to bring the Navajo people power.
Yeah, when we were looking through the binoculars, he said, "Are you guys here to work or be tourists?" And that was how we kicked it off. So we were like, all right. I mean, he didn't use that language, but
All the crews that we worked with, they all lived in like the Chinle or surrounding areas.
And we say close. I mean, it was like, we'd ask him where they lived, and he was just like, oh, see that mountain? We were like, that one? He's like, no, the one back there. That's where I live.
Even with a few modern comforts, life without power meant long drives just to get ice, sometimes spoiled food, and miles of line just to connect a single home.
Just the way of life is a little odd to us because they have some modern conveniences, but then there's others that they just don't have. And you know, obviously power is one of them.
they still had ice boxes. So you have to go get ice to keep. I mean, that was a big thing, was their refrigerator so they could keep food.
A lot of them made the comments that they would have to throw food away because it was difficult to keep the food cold in the ice boxes.
It was literally one customer for how many miles, you think? 4 miles to get him power. What was it, 60 poles total, they said, 67?
Yeah.
To get one customer on. It's like,
There are 4 miles of line.
Is that Philip? Was that with the 30? Did you do?
yes,
He's got power.
He does have power
He's
now?
got power. He got power, so you guys left on Saturday to get home
Mhm.
for Mother's Day. He had power the following week. It took 2 crews to finish it. But do you know that he would go out there and watch you guys work? That he was setting up on a hill? There was a hillside and he would watch you guys work because he said it was like watching, he imagined that's what it would be like to watch TV.
No, we didn't know that. They came and they brought us Navajo tacos. His wife, he was quiet. I mean, that, you know, their whole culture, just seemed like they're a very quiet people. But his wife was really nice. She talked to us, I think, more than he did. He just said thanks and shook our hands and, you know, told us he was going to be out of town, but he appreciated us and everything. But no, I did not know that.
So, knowing now that a family that brought you Navajo tacos has power for the first time in their home, I mean, how did that sit, I guess, knowing that the job that you started is complete and the end goal is there?
I'm kind of irritated that we didn't get to finish it.
That was the big thing. We're used to finishing jobs, and to go halfway through and have to leave. I think, you know, if you would have asked any of us, hey, you want to stay and stick this out, we would have. So knowing that job's complete is a big, you know, relief to, I know, me and all the rest of the guys, because it was just like, oh, we're leaving and it's not done. It was just, it's not how we work.
Yeah, no matter how bad they had it. I mean, I never saw a worse beat up dad sandal than the one Derek had on. A pair of dad shoes. So
I knew that was going to come back.
Are you sure it wasn't a sandal?
It was a sandal.
Did you see it coming full circle?
Oh yeah, I saw it as soon as we brought up the trucks getting stuck.
Anything you'd like to say to Trent for, you know, not being at both of these?
Thanks. You better be at
I better just stop right now. Because he's really going to kill me.
You better be at the board meeting.
Well, I think the video speaks for itself on the impact it had on our crews. They can speak to it a lot more than I can, and the residents or customers in Navajo Nation. I had the pleasure of attending one day with the crew and getting to watch them work. That day that I was there, we drove well over an hour to the job site, hauled 2 poles out there, transformer wire. The crew, the 5 of them, spent all day long working to hook up one customer. The customer that we hooked up that day had just such a gratitude for what we did, for the time that we spent, took out our own time to be there. He was promised power 5 years ago when he built his house, and he finally got power that day. And so he had solar panels that he was paying for to have refrigeration. But if he wanted to have a cup of coffee, he had to unplug it and put the coffee machine in. So he couldn't do both. And I asked him, I said, what are you looking forward to most about having electricity? And he said, HVA system. So he was looking for heating and cooling at his house. So that was nice to see that and see the work that the men did while they were out there. So obviously a few numbers of the Navajo Nation and what they were going through. At the beginning of the project, they estimated it was going to cost $40,000 per customer to get somebody power. With the help of BPU and utilities throughout the nation, they've got that cost down to $8,000 per customer. So it's tremendous help for what we did out there. Since 2019, and this is not including this year, they've connected 1,000 customers, ran over 250 miles of wire with the help of 830 line workers from 21 states. So I can't thank Jeremy Ash enough for allowing us to do it, and I can't acknowledge and thank the men for their time and efforts of what they did. So from electric operations, we're appreciative to everything they've done for us.
Well, thanks, Mike. Thanks, guys, for sure. Amber and her team, Nick, did a wonderful job putting this video and all the other resources together. We will email you a link probably to that video, since there was a little bit of a latency issue here tonight, but you'll be able to watch it a couple of times and let it soak in. But something we're proud of, and I don't know if you've got questions for the team or the two linemen that are here, Justin and David. Feel free.
Just a comment, last year, I attended the National APPA in Oakland, California, and got a chance to become associated with this project, and was really overwhelmed with it, and wondered why we were not participating. And I want to thank Jeremy and the entire crew for your work in this project, because it really is something hard to fathom, not having electricity at all. And to see the type of impact that utilities around the nation bring to this community is really heartwarming. So really appreciate the work that is being done. And then I know that we'll also get a chance to go to the APP again this year. And when we go, you'll be recognized there, and we'll be there to be photographed and receive the award. But the work that was done was not done by us who will be photographed. It was done by you. But we want to commend you today and let you know how much we really appreciate the work that you do, and for Jeremy for allowing it to be done. Thank you so much.
Does David, Justin have anything they want to say, or? I know
We
David's-
know David does.
He's never been at a
Everybody
loss
knows
for
David
words.
does.
You'll be able to hold it against the other three that didn't show up. Now they're David and Justin are both high performers for us, and no surprise to me. I know David a lot better than I know Justin, but as I understand it, when they were given the opportunity, both of them immediately said yes. So I think again, we'll see if Nick can get you the link to this video and you can watch it again. One of the things that I'm proud of is you can't tell from that video who's the superintendent, who's the guys.
Mm-hmm.
That's important.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you.
Yeah, no, obviously, and Stevie, said it, I think, on behalf of probably all of us, but, and it was said before, this is really truly the meaning of public power, right? This is what it's all about. And I'm really, really excited that you guys had the opportunity to do this. And I know that the impact you guys left on that community, but it's very evident the impact it left on you guys as well. So thank you guys, not only for everything you do here all the time, but for going there and connecting that community as well. We really appreciate it.
To echo what's been said, thank you so much. It was inspirational, a nice video as well, and continue to be in touch with that nation and what it means to have that done. Just grateful that we've been a part of it. Thank you, gentlemen. At this point, seeing if anyone signed up for the public comments. Do we have any public comments, Ms. May? Has anyone signed up?
Thank you, Chris. Looks like there is one customer signed up to speak about items that were on tonight's agenda. It's Ty Gorman. Would you please come to the podium, and you're asking for your name and residence.
Thank you very much. It's Ty Gorman, 2843 Parkwood. Just was driving home from work and listening to the legislative update, and that was really well done, and love the work they do up there in the State House with working with Sierra Club's lobbyist as well. I represent Sierra Club for the region here. But as a resident and ratepayer, been thinking a lot about the data center issue and reached out about it some. Just wanted to take this opportunity to break down a little of what I said to the UG Planning Commission last meeting they had, which really centered on in other communities, data centers, they have come in and they use so much energy that it's hard to fathom. They use as much energy as like this one data center project out in West Wyandotte would use as much as pretty much everybody else in the county, just in that data center. And BPU's done a great job, as far as I can see, of looking at that risk, of maintaining lines with those folks on making sure that it doesn't impact customers for the first building, as far as the financial, as far as the commitment BPU makes or the financial. But what I've seen in other places is that once the data center is approved, once it comes in, there's this, Red Wolf LLC, who's a developer who's looking to flip it to a tenant. And, he's trying to bid the value up. And so they're not willing to enter in to what would really save BPU customers in the long run if they followed through with the whole project, which is a 24/7 clean energy capacity agreement. That's really the gold standard at this point, the standard that Google follows. Microsoft has worked in that standard as well. There's only 5 companies that buy these big hyperscalers, and those are the 2 leaders environmentally. Meta has done these agreements as well, but that's only when, for the last 2 especially, when the local government is supportive of and pushing for a 24/7 clean energy capacity agreement. And what that would do would match what the Southwest Power Pool demands of BPU.
You have 30 seconds.
Really? I didn't know I just had a few. Okay. 2 minutes and 30 seconds. All right. That'll be easier. All right. Thanks. So that demands that every hour that the data center is using energy is matched by local clean energy, and they can invest in that energy locally. That'll bring jobs and investment and all kinds of business and growth to Wyandotte County to have an agreement like that. And if not, then they're using energy all day, every day, at that huge level. So the amount that, even at 100 megawatts, the amount that has to be purchased in the peak hours when we have to purchase market energy, and that market energy is expensive, that is, a risk that data center is bringing to our customers and to me and the ratepayers. So just want to say that the Red Wolf people aren't going to volunteer a clean energy agreement, but it's not going to kill the project either. There's these big hyperscaler companies that are more than willing, when they get speed, when they get to come into a community and put something up within a few years, then that's worth more than $1 billion to them, which might be around the amount that they would invest in Wyandotte County to get 24/7 clean energy through energy efficiency, through demand response, investing in our homes, investing in businesses, investing in the BPU to administer companies and services. These are just some options that can happen. And having a 24/7 clean energy capacity agreement puts that negotiation power and that opportunity into the hands of BPU primarily, to work out the details of what makes the most sense for the county to have that kind of clean energy be supporting the data center here over the next
Now
5
30.
years. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And my apologies, I was timing for three, the old 3, not 5.
Rob, is there anybody online? Thank you. This time for our miscellaneous comments, I do have a few. First and foremost, most of you know Superintendent Jeff Sanders. Last night he was working, doing some storm restoration activities, as we did have some weather last night, as you know. And another driver ran a red light and smacked into him. So I talking with Mike and Darren and the HR team today. He is okay. He's a little sore and trying to stretch out and deal with some nagging pain, but outside of that, no real major injuries, not major industries, major injuries. So
He's Superman.
yeah. So looks like we probably are going to lose a truck out of the deal, but that's far better than what could have happened. So please, if you would, keep Jeff in your thoughts. Just an effort to keep me better organized. Amber has done a fabulous job, and Nick at making sure that I stay on track with everything that I need to update you all on from week to week. And so there should be in your packets this week what we're kind of calling the monthly community impact report. And so I won't go through that whole thing. It's there for you to take and read and kind of follow along and see what we're doing out in the community and affecting people. But a couple of the main highlights is we're about 85% complete on the water main project in the area R. If you remember the map that we've seen showed several times from Steve's team, down from the electric production group, CT2 is back online, and CT4 is probably really close to being back online. All the major work has been completed, and so we fully expect to have both those units back for the summertime. The other team, the customer care team, has kicked off their meeting for their IVR system replacement, which is going to have some improved access for our Spanish and Hmong speaking customers. So we're excited about being able to help more people that way through that tool. Last month, we reached over 5,000 community members with presentations, touch a truck events, things at schools, things out in the community, really from members of our team all across the company. So super proud of that. We have kicked off a little bit of our volunteer efforts that we've talked about. The admin building spent a great deal of time down at Banneker School. We've done some other things. And in the month of May, we've given over 100 hours of community service. I'm proud to say that this morning, again, Nick, I feel like, I don't know where he went. He's a busy man, but this morning, bright AM, at 7 a.m., he and Claudia on the HR team were down talking with the Muncie folks about our volunteerism and how they can get involved, how we can best give them the opportunities to support in meaningful ways that they see fit. And out of the HR team, we've onboarded 11 new hires in May. 7 of those were interns. They're off and running, sprinkled in throughout the organization all over the place. So we're proud of our intern program, proud of all the work that the teams have done. You've heard that, a lot about that. And then Gabi had a promotion in the customer care area. Katrina McQuistion was promoted to manager of customer care. As you know, that we're always trying to get better in that area, and that's going to be a critical role for us. So super proud of that. And last month, I think you're all aware too that we had some restructuring in the environmental department, and so Tiffany Lee and Keith Brown were both promoted to managers of environmental compliance. So super excited about the efficiency and just the nimbleness of that team and how it's coming together. It's going to allow us to do some other things like, hopefully onboard our own internal auditor. So how we're trying to maybe reshape that vacancy and repurpose it to something we really need and can get a lot of value out of. I did send out an email polling everybody. There has been a couple of different requests from the board to have a work session to just help better understand some of the data center ins and outs. And so we will have a work session. I'll get an agenda out to you all on the 18th, 5 o'clock here in the first floor conference room. And the last thing I have, I think the day before that meeting, Mr. Parker will be having a birthday. So looking forward to hope you have a good couple of weeks here.
The party's where?
And that's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Ash, General Manager Ash. We appreciate those insights and updates. This time, see if we have any comments from our members of the board. We'll begin with Rose Mulvaney Henry, our Vice President.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll keep my comments brief tonight, but I want to thank, obviously, Andrew, Randy, and the team on the financial side for working through a successful audit. I know that's painstaking, but you guys are doing a great job with it, so thank you. I appreciate that. I know Kimberly's not here with us any longer, but really appreciate the legislative update. Some of us don't get to live it, up close and personal every day like Senator Haley does. So it's good to get the Cliffs Notes version for sure. And again, thank you to all of electric operations for, dedication through our local storms and going out and helping others in another community. Really appreciate that. And obviously, happy birthday, Mr. Parker. That's it, Mr. President.
Thank you, Vice President Mulvaney Henry. Mary Gonzalez, position 1 at large.
What she said.
Well done, Mary. Board Secretary Brett Parker.
I echo both previous comments. Really also just want to say, David and Justin, thank you for representing the utility and our community and assisting the Navajo Nation. So we gratefully are very grateful for that, and you guys clearly did a great job. Appreciate all the information we got tonight, and also Ty, appreciate your comments as well. I'm sure we're going to have lots of great discussions about this. It's an issue that's front and center right now, and we want to get it right. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. Mr. Wakes, Stevie Wakes, 1st District.
What they said. Thank
Wow.
you, Mary.
I'm really impressed. And Mr. Groneman, Tom Groneman, position District U2, District 2.
What they said, plus I also would like David and Justin to take back to the other members that weren't able to attend this evening our thanks and appreciation for all that they did out in the Navajo Nation. We really we know that you represented us well, and we appreciate it. And thank you again for all that. And Jeremy, I want to thank you for your community impact report. It's good to see that both the team, you know, what's going on, how we're getting out into the community and what impact that we're having. So thank you for this report. It's very, very enlightening. Very good report. And happy birthday, Brett. Thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you, Mr. Groneman. I appreciate it. Looking forward to that birthday. Happy birthday. Let me first say that, Brett Parker. And let me too echo and thank each of you for reserving the additional time that I might have it. I appreciate that at this moment. No, just really though, it is exciting to see what happened with the Navajo project. And we're inspired very much. And it bears repeating. We can't repeat it enough. Thank you very much for what you've done and to share that with the team as well. And also Andrew for sharing what has happened with the resolution that we passed. I think that's exciting to look at something that's going to benefit our ratepayers as we do the ripple effect on that. I have nothing else other than that. I'm looking forward to, as we get into the data centers and further discussion. I do appreciate what Kimberly Gincourt-Schwady brought in the report, legislative and otherwise. The data centers are huge. The special session that we will have, as the general manager said, on the 18th, will help us look at some of the professional insight, legal insights, and others as we embrace what could be a very exciting time for our utility as a whole. Other than that, I'm grateful that we had this time together. Let's get together again real soon and do it on the 18th, if not before. Having said that, I'd entertain any motion that might to cede for the day.
I move to adjourn.
Thank you. Ms. Lawson, if we could have a roll call.
Roll call. Mulvaney Henry.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Gonzalez.
Aye.
Groneman.
Aye.
Haley.
Aye.
Wakes.
Aye.
That motion carries. This meeting is adjourned.
Meeting adjourned.